We are told that the New World of the Americas was unknown before European explorers. But there is evidence that this half of the earth was being visited regularly. Why would they want to hide that? Is it because America does have a secret destiny, like Manly Palmer Hall said? Today, in our second episode, we will break this down. Dominoes of His Story. Episode 2. The New World Wasn't So New. We are told that before explorers like Amerigo Vespucci, Christopher Columbus, Juan Ponce de León, Pedro Álvarez Cabral, Vasco Núñez de Balboa, Hernando de Soto, Henry Hudson, and a host of lesser-known European explorers and conquistadores found the continents of North, Central, and South America for Europe. It was not visited and unknown to the world with the exception of the native people. But there is a multitude of evidence that the New World of the Americas, or Amaruca, Land of the Serpent, as our first video explained, was not only known about, but also frequently visited. Why would they want to lie about that? Furthermore, how have they been able to keep that knowledge from people? The transformation of the American educational system can be traced back to the influence of one powerful family, the Rockefellers, founders and owners of Standard Oil. Acting as instruments of the global elite, their reach extended far beyond industry. In many ways, they function like franchisors of influence, shaping not only the nation's economy, but also its systems of learning and health. The same network would later give rise to the highly standardized, profit-driven medical model that dominates today, though that story warrants its own deeper exploration. In 1902, John D. Rockefeller established the General Education Board, endowing it with $180 million, a staggering sum for the time. Rockefeller himself once stated, "I don't want a nation of thinkers, I want a nation of workers." Through this initiative, the structure of modern public education was born. The system it produced emphasized uniformity over individuality, memorization over critical thought, and compliance over curiosity. What were once called Rockefeller schools gradually became the national standard, shaping the collective mind of a generation. In doing so, they ensured that history would be taught not as our shared story, but as his story, a narrative crafted to serve those in power. Let's cut the shit, okay? This place, America. During the last ice age, only certain areas were considered truly habitable zones. America had many of these so-called zones. And yes, a myriad of proofs have emerged that many cultures visited the Americas for years before they tried to rebrand it as the New World. Readers familiar with researchers such as Michael Zarian, whose 2-volume work, The Irish Origins of Civilization, is essential reading, and Graham Hancock, whose vast and detailed explorations have reshaped our understanding of prehistory, already know there is overwhelming evidence that the lands of the Western Hemisphere were visited countless times throughout antiquity. Long before Columbus ever set sail, the Vikings reached the North American continent around 1000 AD, a fact confirmed by a 2021 study published in Nature. Evidence also suggests that Minoan Greeks crossed the Atlantic millennia earlier. In 2006, a pendant unearthed on a Cleveland, Ohio football field was dated to 1690 BC, linking the region to ancient Mediterranean visitors. Graham Hancock, in both his appearance on the Joe Rogan Experience and his book America Before, The Key to Earth's Lost Civilization, explains that the North American continent was inhabited as far back as 130,000 years ago, long before the accepted timeline of human migration across the Bering Land Bridge. Across this immense span of time, a mosaic of civilizations filled the Americas, their stories largely forgotten or rewritten. In 1909, an explorer named G.E. Kincaid claimed to have discovered vast underground dwellings in the Grand Canyon, allegedly containing relics resembling those of ancient Egypt, including a Buddha-like statue. Kincaid was no amateur. He worked as an archaeologist under the Smithsonian Institution, an organization long accused of controlling and concealing aspects of historical discovery. Skeptics have dismissed Kincaid's account as an early 20th century hoax, yet questions remain. If the story was false, why are large sections of the Grand Canyon off limits to the public even today? And why does the area bear names such as the Isis Temple? The shaping of anthropology and archaeology in the United States did not escape the same influences that transformed medicine and education under the Rockefeller system. Just as allopathic medicine replaced traditional and herbal practices through Rockefeller funding, so too did academia conform to narratives that suited powerful interests. When anomalous discoveries challenged those narratives, who was responsible for suppressing them? Once again, the name surfaces: the Smithsonian Institution. Kincaid himself was on their payroll. Over the decades, the Smithsonian has been accused of confiscating and concealing evidence of oversized skeletons, some said to be between 7 and 9 feet tall, discovered from Catalina Island to Ohio and Georgia. Reports claim they erased records of massive burial mounds and artifacts linking the Americas to older civilizations abroad. America's true past, it seems, is a labyrinth of distortions, half-truths, and deliberate omissions, a pattern shared by other continents, from India and Africa to Europe, whose tangled histories have long obscured the hand of those who controlled the narrative. To understand how this web was spun, we must trace the formation of the United States back to its roots, not just through Christopher Serpent Column Columbus, but through the corporations and empires that laid its foundations. As Europe's aristocracy faded, its power did not disappear, it transformed. The rise of chartered corporations allowed noble bloodlines to continue their influence under new names. Among the first were the London Company, officially known as the Virginia Company of London, which founded Jamestown, and its sister entity, the Plymouth Company, known as the Virginia Company of Plymouth, which established the Plymouth colony at the mouth of the Hudson River. The symbols of these early companies reveal their lineage. The Virginia Company's coat of arms and company flag bear the unmistakable imagery of red crosses on white shields, white knights, lions, harps, and fleur-de-lis, all symbols linked to the Knights Templar. The Templars, as many historians and researchers, including Freddie Silva, have shown, were instrumental in the founding of Portugal, a country whose name, Silva argues, derives from the phrase Portugal, through you, the Grail. Portugal would go on to dominate the maritime world, establishing the early routes to the Americas long before official accounts recognized them. Templar traces can be found across the Atlantic. The Kensington runestone, discovered in 1898 in Minnesota and dated to 1362, bears inscriptions attributed not to Vikings, but to the Knights Templar themselves. Similar evidence connects Templar expeditions to Nova Scotia, Quebec, and Rhode Island's Newport Tower. Even the Algonquin and Anishinaabe tribes of northeastern North America have ceremonial traditions that echo Freemasonic and Templar rites. legacies of their direct encounters with explorers such as Prince Henry Sinclair, a known Templar and Freemason. Yet these were not the first visitors. The Minoan Greeks, flourishing from 2700 to 1100 BCE on Crete and Santorini, appear to have mined copper in the Great Lakes region as early as the 17th century BCE. Over 5,000 copper mines have been identified near Lake Superior, their output matching the purity and chemical signature of copper used throughout the ancient Mediterranean. Tools found at these Michigan sites mirror Minoan implements, and even pottery fragments match those from Minoan settlements, suggesting the Minoan Greeks made it to the New World around 1700 BCE. Anomalies abound regarding Greek and Hebrew visitation to the Americas. Things stand out that are simply incongruent and inconsistent with the historical narrative taught in schools. Many stones and inscriptions were found in mounds throughout America, and nearly every single one was labeled a fraud by someone affiliated with or working for the Smithsonian institution, and most of them were associated with the Cherokee peoples. Let's run down a list of these. The Grave Creek Stone, also known as the Possum Creek Stone, found in a vault inside the Grave Creek Mound during archaeological excavation led by Jesse and Abelard Tomlinson in 1838 at Grave Creek Mound in Moundsville, West Virginia, associated with the Cherokee. The Redbird River petroglyphs, a group of petroglyphs on a stone that fell from a cliffside onto a highway in 1994 in Clay County, Kentucky during highway widening construction, associated with the Cherokee. The Bat Creek Stone is a small inscribed tablet that was unearthed in 1889 by John W. Emmert during an excavation of burial mounds in Loudoun County, Tennessee, specifically Tipton Mound No. 3, said to contain Greek, Hebrew, and Cherokee letters of their alphabets. How is it so many researchers have come to the same conclusion, only to be declared hoaxes? Why are these artifacts always found where Native American mound builder excavations happen? In 1870, a mound excavation along Rocky Creek near Castalian Springs, Tennessee, a 19 by 15-inch engraved limestone tablet was found that describes a peace treaty between the Cherokee and the Shawnee. In the engraving, a Cherokee chief depicted wears a hair-crested helmet. The chief carries the shield and spear of a Greek hoplite. A woman wears her hair in a maiden's bun. In this engraving, there is also an unmistakable Star of David, also known as the Seal of Solomon, or the Star of Remphan depicted. According to a creation myth of the Delaware tribe called the Walam Olum, the Algonquians mention warriors they found wearing stone coats, which many believe meant they had metal armor. Cherokee legends of the stone coat tell of ancestors who possessed metal armor and advanced weaponry. All of these have been dismissed, marked as hoaxes or frauds. But we must ask, what if they are not? It is easy to say these are not authentic, but there are anomalies in the record that bring the mighty Cherokee people into contact with Minoan Greeks. Some things are undeniable, like language and DNA. The Smithsonian can attempt, but cannot refute these. Here is a list of similar Greek and Cherokee words. How is this even remotely possible without contact? Feel free to pause and examine the video here. In 2009, a study of genetic haplogroups focusing on 52 Cherokee Indian descendants conducted by Donald Yates, titled Anomalous Mitochondrial DNA Lineages in the Cherokee, found that they contained DNA unmistakably from the Mediterranean, Middle East, and Northern Africa. How do you refute that? You get one denier from UC Davis to cry out that it was admixed in through interbreeding after Columbus's visit. Then, once that is recorded, you refute it through silence. That is how the snooty academic world treats truth revealers. Get a denial on record, and then give it silence. But if DNA can lock people up for life for murders committed decades ago, why doesn't it prove that people from the Old World visited the so-called New World? The whole storyline arc of the founding of the Americas, then, was never truly a new venture. It was a rediscovered world, one whose history was rewritten to serve later powers. So when we hear the story of Columbus sailing the ocean blue in 1492, we must remember explorers from Portugal, the Templar orders, the Vikings, and even ancient Greeks and Phoenicians all arrived here long before him. The truth is simple. The New World was known to the Old World far earlier than we've been led to believe. It's not history. It is his story. If you've enjoyed this exploration, we invite you to stay tuned. Every word of this story is our own original research, and we have much more to uncover. Like, follow, and subscribe to catch the next chapters. And as always, remember, you are loved and you are meant to align with your highest astral self.